This is Guy Ciarrocchi joining me to really follow up where we left off last time, talking about schools, school funding, and everything Pennsylvania. Hey, Guy.
Good morning. Listening with interest to your last interview with Charles, but also with interest to your conversation about food and the Jersey Shore,
yes.
as you were doing, because I've spent more of my entire life in Ocean City. But so I have to do, you're doing plug. I have to do a shout out to Benny's Rolls. If you want real bread, real rolls, making your hoagie or whatever, it's worth. You have to stand in line and wait.
Yes.
But it's worth. So that's my memory. That's my memory is getting that and coming back with our family and making hoagies. And it's real bread, which is something since I left South Philly I miss desperately.
Yeah. It's always the carbs, but they're so good.
Yeah.
And it's that smell. You know, it probably right now, and it's a particular smell. If you smell a Benny's roll, if somebody open up the package, you know that familiar good smell, and it brings you right back to childhood, right?
Yes.
So you can tell we're all hungry here, Guy, because we're thinking about all this great food, whether it's Philadelphia or down the Jersey Shore. I don't know. I think sometimes we need some comfort food when we think about all the things that bother us. And the latest, and even the Inquirer acknowledging as they're calling it, a misstep for Governor Josh Shapiro. Take me through on your thoughts as far as not just schools, but the budget in general. As you look at the Pennsylvania budget, this is, not a good look. That Josh Shapiro had said, our governor had really campaigned on the fact that he's a bridge builder. And in this budget, he wants to reach across the aisle and make sure that there's bipartisan support. Give me your take as this went well overdue and a ton of fighting. So take me through it, Guy Ciarrocchi.
Yeah. So I see it, three big points. One was an enormous missed opportunity to achieve bipartisan governing. You have a state house where the Democrats are clinging to a one-seat majority, where on any given day, if a member is sick or not there, the balance of power is in flux. You have a state Senate that's overwhelmingly Republican and a brand new Democratic governor. This is a situation that cries out for grown-ups to find common ground. The Republicans won't get all that they want. The Democrats won't get all that they want. So the first thing that comes to mind is an enormous missed opportunity, because there was a handshake agreement with a good old-fashioned compromise where each party was going to get something, and we were going to get a good budget that certainly was going to help children. The second news is it's yet to be finished. So there's still a chance, there's still a chance, be it remote. And that is, as some of your other guests have said, the budget as we described it is not finished. There is no bill on the governor's desk for him to support or veto or line item. The budget is sort of I explain it this way. The budget's like the new toy that you get for your kids at Christmas, but then the instructions come along. And there's all the other bills that are the instructions of how to spend education money or how to spend transportation money. So the budget isn't really one bill. It's a whole bunch of bills. So my second takeaway is it's not yet over, because at this point, the legislature has taken a recess. There's sort of a timeout, a cooling off period. So there's still time for them to try and rebuild trust, find a bipartisan solution. And the third is this was an enormous missed opportunity for children. The governor had put together a bill, not the bill I would have put together, but he put together a plan to rescue kids trapped in bad schools, and did it in such a way that it really focused on the poorest kids in the worst schools, and did it while at the same time increasing public education funding by the highest amount in the history of the Commonwealth. Mm-hmm. So you would have thought he had put together a grand deal. He's given extraordinarily increased funding that should make the teachers union happy. He wanted to rescue kids trapped in historically bad schools, which would make all the people who care about those kids and who believe in empowering parents happy. It was so far an enormous missed opportunity. So I hope they come back, because they have to fix the budget, and I hope that they reconsider this. And just to share this last point, in the midst of the billions of dollars they're going to spend in this budget, as they do every year. This represents these lifeline scholarships to rescue these poor kids trapped in horrible schools. It represents 0.2% of the budget. All of this fallout, all of the headlines, all the stories in the Inquirer, all the news that you're covering, Dawn, all the stuff in the Wall Street Journal is about 0.2% of the budget. This is an enormous political fight over a relatively small amount. So you hope that cooler heads will prevail, and you hope they'll come back and solve this budget standoff, and you hope that they'll do it by rescuing these kids and empowering these parents to make choices to send their kids to a good, safe school.
So even though you're hopeful, do you think there is, and I'm quoting, the movies, but so you're saying there's a chance. I mean,
there is a chance.
You're saying there's a chance, for really the Governor Shapiro would, first he promised it, and then he reversed it apparently and said, no, he's going to line item veto the thing. And now we're saying the standoff would have to last for months. So how does this affect Pennsylvania government, and what is the fallout that you see if Josh Shapiro ultimately does not deliver on that promise?
So there's still a chance because of the reasons I've said, which is they're supposed to pass a budget by June 30th, which funds our schools, police, state parks, state roads, and all local government. They're supposed to do that by July 1st. They haven't done it. They eventually have to. And they eventually have to pass all these other bills, which, as I said, sort of the instructions on how to operate the new toy, that give the details on education funding, that give the details on transportation funding, that give the details on criminal justice. In order to do that, there has to be compromise. And I think there are those Senate Republicans and, frankly, some Philadelphia Democrats who would like them to revisit Lifeline as part of the discussion, because at some point the grown-ups, whether they get on a Zoom call or sit in a conference room or over dinner, they're all going to have to talk to each other and figure out how to keep government operating. And I think that's going to be an opportunity for Lifeline supporters to say, what would it take? Because again, as I said, remember, this doesn't impact public education, traditional public education at all. In fact, the largest increase in public education funding in the history of the Commonwealth is in this draft budget. So they're going to eventually have to come to an agreement, because they have to pay for schools, they have to pay for police officers,
pay the bills.
They have to pay for maintenance on right, got to pay the bills. So look, I don't want to, is it likely? Yeah, it's likely. It's probably less likely than the Phillies making the playoffs, but more likely than the Sixers winning a championship. It's possible. It's possible. We have to remain hopeful. And that's why I think you hear folks like Charles Mitchell and others saying we still need parents to engage and talk to their legislators, because the legislators are home now. I mean, they're either on vacation or they're back in their districts. They're living in our communities. They're going to the Acme. They're going to swim meets, they're going to church, and we need to talk to them and encourage them to find compromise, because I do believe this. While the State House has 102 Democrats and 101 Republicans, I believe there are a majority of votes that support Lifeline. I believe there are as many as 8 Philadelphia Democrats who would vote for this if given the opportunity, and if the governor would say that he has their back. Because those are the parents that live in the communities, that live in the real world, that know about the problems with these schools. And if given the chance, those Democrats would vote for it. So there's a chance, and which is why we have to keep pressuring. We need parents, but we need people who care about those parents and care about those kids. And I need my neighbors in the suburbs. Who are blessed. As many folks say, we already have school choice. You move to the different school district because it's a good school district. You move to the Central Bucks School District because you want to be there. We're talking about people that are where they are. They know their schools are in trouble. They don't have the resources to pick up and move to Lower Merion. Those people don't have a choice. And in Philadelphia, where the school district has capped the enrollment on charter schools and won't let new charter schools open, these parents really have no other choice. They can't move to Lower Merion. They don't have the resources. They can't send their kids to charter schools because there's a 30,000 child waiting list. So the only option is these scholarships. So not only is there a chance, but I think there's an imperative, and I think whether you live in Malvern or Quakertown or West Philly, we need to tell these legislators to come together, act like grown-ups, pass the budget, but help these parents to rescue their kids from situations that many of us would never allow our kids to go to those schools.
Yeah, it's well put. So it's possible as well, because I was looking at the dates. September 18th is when they're supposed to be back in session, but it could potentially happen sometime in August if they are under pressure. Is that what you're reading into this? That it's possible that we could see some movement in August?
Sure, they can come back. The Speaker of the House, Joanna McClinton from Philadelphia, has the authority to ask the House to come back. State Senator Kim Ward, who lives out in Westmoreland County, about 30 minutes east of Pittsburgh. She's the Republican leader in the Senate. She basically has said when folks are ready to have an honest discussion, because they already had a discussion and a handshake. So she said, well, you're ready to have an honest discussion, shake hands and mean it, we'll come back. If not, we'll see you in September. So I think there's a chance they'll come back. I hope they do, because, Dawn, remember when you and I spoke before, the hope was that this bill would have been passed in June and that parents could have changed schools this September. I'm still hoping and praying that they find a way to come back together and agree in July or August so that parents are able to make choices this September. Why would we want to send children back? Why would we want to force children to go back to schools they don't want to be in, that their parents don't want to be in? For the parents that want to be in those neighborhood schools, that like those schools or believe they're going to be improved, they should have the right to stay. But for the ones that should leave, that want to leave, we should let them leave. That's why I'm hoping they come back in August, because I still want parents to have a choice for this fall. Why make them stay one more year? Let me just share this. You know, you talked about it and others did. Recently, we had the nation's report cards. The U.S. Department of Education works with an organization to rate schools and to see the proficiency rates, right? All schools went down. Catholic schools, private schools did not. All schools went down. City schools went down further than the national average. Schools that serve children of color, African American, went down by the most. These children lost the most. There are schools in Philadelphia. Where the proficiency rate, in other words, how many children are working at grade level. There are schools in Philadelphia where the proficiency rate in math is zero. There are a handful of where it's single digits. Why in God's name? To quote Governor Shapiro, these are children of God. Why in God's name would you force anyone to go to a school where literally not one child is doing math at grade level? Why as a nation? Why as a city? Why as a community? Why as a state? Why do we do that? Look, if a parent thinks that school is going to eventually turn around, or if a parent thinks that their child can get by in that school, that's fine. But for a parent that says, help me get my child out of here, why would we stand in their way?
So for Shapiro's part, he has stated that he didn't want to plunge the state into, a painful, protracted budget impasse. And I did see, I was off last week, but that you had retweeted Randy Weingarten of the Teachers Union, that she was grateful to the Pennsylvania House Democrats who had approved, the $45.5 billion state spending plan, but were back, quote unquote, she was saying, good, the governor has backed off his insistence on, this new private school funding program. But for your part of it, what do you say, Guy Ciarrocchi, to an individual who says, well, these so-called vouchers, these are for those wealthy parents or grandparents who can take the voucher, the caregivers, and it's really for the wealthy. You say what?
I think it's upside down and backwards. Go back to, remember, these vouchers, these scholarships are for children attending the worst schools, and not the schools that you would pick as the worst, not the schools that Guy Ciarrocchi would pick as the worst. These are the schools that the Pennsylvania Department of Education say are the bottom 15%. Where do we think those schools are? Those schools aren't in Malvern. Those schools aren't in Lower Merion. Those schools aren't in Doylestown. Those schools are in communities where parents don't have the resources to leave. I mean, do we really think that a family with a 6-figure or a 7-figure income would purposely live in a neighborhood and force their daughter to go to a school where literally no one does math at grade level? Of course not. They pick up and move or send their kid to a private school. No, this by design is targeted solely at parents for the children whose schools do the worst. And as an extra belt and suspenders, they talked about adding language that's saying you had to be within 2 times the poverty rate. So not only does common sense tell us that no one wealthy, no one even remotely wealthy, not only does common sense tell us that, but they put in an extra provision through there. And look, take a walk around Strawberry Mansion High School. Take a walk around, as Charles talked about, Little Flower High School in Hunting Park. What Charles, I would tell you this from having been to Little Flower myself. One of the things the principal said is they would welcome to double the population. But the other thing that Christy said is that the shame of it is they go to so many community events in Hunting Park. They go to fairs and block parties and hand out flyers. The parents in that community that literally can see or walk to Little Flower are hesitant to even apply because they don't think it's in their grasp. They don't think it's in their grasp. And sometimes they will try and offer them aid and say, well, if you can contribute $300 a month. And she said, you can't say that to a family. You say to them, they don't have an extra $300 a month. And so, no, it's insane. Look, it flies in the face of common sense. No wealthy family purposely sends their kid to a bad school or lives purposely in a bad neighborhood. But the legislature actually put in a provision limiting it to people in a poverty scale. Look, and as I said, the other thing is they increased public education spending by the largest amount in the history of the Commonwealth. There is literally no reason not to do this. Look at this. What's the worst thing that happened? You offer this choice to parents and nobody takes it because they don't want it. Or we offer it and parents take it up. And kids get to go to a school where they're happier and their parents think they're safer. There's literally no downside to this whatsoever. It is purely about politics, about people like Randy Weingartner crowing. And as I said, Tara, I'll say on your show, she's crowing about schools that she never visited in neighborhoods she wouldn't walk through.
But
she's telling
certainly
parents.
Go ahead.
No, she's telling parents that, we're defending public education. I'm in favor of public education. I think as a community, we should support children getting access to good schools. But how dare you sit on vacation and tweet and say how wonderful this is? Really? Would she send her 14-year-old daughter to Strawberry Mansion High School? Would she do that? No, she wouldn't. Has she walked through those type of neighborhoods where parents are looking for options and looking for hope, where crime is a real part of life? No. So the problem is the politicians and the power, the teachers union are having this game and this power struggle while real parents are like, Charles spoke about earlier, while real students are looking for real options.
Well, listen, I thank you so much. We'll stay on it. I know the Republicans still have a little bit of leverage. They haven't lost all their leverage. So we appreciate you for sure. Thank you so much, Guy Ciarrocchi.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Always. We just appreciate your insights for sure.